Bonjour et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Cindy. In this lesson, we're going to learn all about masculine possessive pronouns. So first things first, what is a possessive pronoun? In English, the possessive pronouns are mine, yours, his, hers, ours, and theirs. So a possessive pronoun is used to replace a possessive adjective and a noun. For example, in English, you could say, it's mine, instead of saying, it's my coat, to avoid repetition if everyone knows you're talking about your coat. So basically, possessive pronouns are words used to say who someone or something belongs to. Not that people actually belong to anyone, but you know what I mean. So now let's learn a little bit about French possessive pronouns. How are they different to English possessive pronouns? Well, French possessive pronouns have to agree in number and gender with the noun they replace. So, unlike in English, which possessive pronoun you choose to use has nothing whatsoever to do with who the possessor is. So the distinction between his and hers is not made in French, because that would be based on whether the possessor is male or female. But in French, which possessive pronoun you need to use depends on whether the noun it replaces is masculine or feminine, singular or plural. And another difference between French and English possessive pronouns is that in French you need to use a definite article in front of the possessive pronoun. So if the possessive pronoun replaces a masculine singular noun, you need to use le. If it replaces a feminine singular noun, you need to use la, and if it replaces a plural noun, you need to use les. So in this lesson, we're only having a look at masculine possessive pronouns. We'll look at feminine possessive pronouns in a separate lesson. So if the possessive pronoun refers to a masculine singular noun, that is, if mine, yours, his, hers, etc. refer to a masculine singular noun such as un manteau, a coat, then you need to use le mien to say mine, le tien to say yours. If you want to say his or hers, you need to say le sien. As you can see, le sien can mean either his or hers, because in French, possessive pronouns do not agree with the person who owns the thing we're referring to. So again, if ours refers to a masculine singular noun, you need to use le nôtre to say ours. You would need to say le vôtre to mean yours, and le leur to mean theirs. Now, if the possessive pronoun refers to a masculine plural noun, that is, for example, if mine refers to my slippers, mes chaussons, then all you need to do is add an S to the definite article and use les instead of le, and also add an S to the possessive pronoun, like so. To say mine, use les miens. For yours, say les tiens. His or hers would be les siens. Ours, les nôtres. Yours, les vôtres. And theirs, les leurs. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. Mon frère a 10 ans. Quel âge a ton frère? My brother is 10 years old. How old is your brother? In order to avoid the repetition of the noun frère, brother, we should use a possessive pronoun. Which possessive pronoun do you think we would use to replace ton frère? Because frère is a masculine singular noun, we would use a definite article le, and because we want to say yours, and that yours refers to a masculine singular noun, frère, we would use tien, le tien. Mon frère a 10 ans. Quel âge a le tien? And then as a response, instead of saying mon frère a 17 ans, my brother is 17 years old, in order to avoid repetition of frère, you should use the possessive pronoun le mien to say mine. Le mien a 17 ans. Mine is 17 years old. Let's have a look at a couple more examples. Ce sont les enfants de qui? whose children are they? If you wanted to say they are ours, you would say ce sont les nôtres. Why? Because les nôtres replaces nos enfants, and enfant is a masculine plural noun. C'est le t-shirt d'Emily? Is it Emily's t-shirt? Oui, c'est le sien. Yes, it's hers. So notice that even though in English we're using hers, in French we're using a masculine possessive pronoun, le sien, because le sien refers to her t-shirt, and t-shirt is a masculine singular noun. Remember that in French, the possessive pronoun agrees with the noun it replaces, not with the person the thing belongs to. So up until now, you've seen that in French, possessive pronouns include a definite article, which in the masculine is either le or les. But sometimes the possessive pronoun is preceded by the preposition a. For example, if you want to say something like to yours, and a and le always contract to o. Le can never be preceded by a. So instead of saying a le mien, you would need to say au mien. Instead of saying a le tien, you would need to say au tien. A le sien would become au sien. A le nôtre would become au nôtre. Instead of saying a le vôtre, you would need to say au vôtre. And a le leur would become au leur. And a similar thing happens in the plural, because when les is preceded by the preposition a les becomes o, pronounced the same as in the singular but spelt with an X. So if the masculine plural possessive pronoun was preceded by the preposition a, instead of saying a les miens, you would need to say au mien. A les tiens would become au tien, etc. The pronunciation would be exactly the same as in the singular, but au would be spelled with an X and the possessive pronoun with an S. So basically, just remember that in French, a, le always becomes au, and a, les always becomes au with an X. So for example, dis bonjour à ton père de ma part. Say hello to your father for me. Passe aussi le bonjour au tien pour moi. Say hello to yours for me as well. So why are we using au tien here? Well, first of all, if we weren't using a possessive pronoun at all, we would be repeating à ton père. Passe aussi le bonjour à ton père pour moi. But to avoid repetition, we need to use a possessive pronoun. To replace ton père with a possessive pronoun, we would need to use le tien, because père is a masculine singular noun. But in order to say to yours, we would need to use the preposition à. And as we've seen previously, à le tien becomes au tien. Je pense à mes parents. I'm thinking about my parents. Moi aussi je pense aux miens. I'm thinking about mine too. Au mien stands for à les miens. And why would we have used les miens if it wasn't for the preposition à? Because parents is a masculine plural noun. The other preposition that has an effect on possessive pronouns is de, as de and le always become du. So instead of saying de le mien, which could mean of mine, you would need to say du mien. Instead of saying de le tien, you would say du tien. De le sien would become du sien. De le nôtre would become du nôtre. De le vôtre would become du vôtre. And instead of saying de le leur, you would need to say du leur. And finally, de and les become des. So instead of saying de les miens, you would need to say des miens. De les tiens would become des tiens. De les siens would become des siens, etc. Remember that the final S is silent, so for example, mien in du mien or des miens is pronounced exactly the same. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. As-tu peur des chiens? Are you scared of dogs? Normalement non, mais j'ai peur des tiens. Not usually, but I'm scared of yours. So, des tiens stands for de les tiens, and if it wasn't for the preposition de, we would have used les tiens because les tiens, yours, would be referring to tes chiens, your dogs, and chien is a masculine plural noun. But of course, because we're using the preposition de, and les contract to des. Tu parles de mon frère? Are you talking about my brother? Non, je parle du sien. No, I'm talking about his. Du sien stands for de le sien. And why le sien? Because le sien refers to son frère, his brother, and frère is a masculine singular noun. But we are using du because de and le become du. I hope you found this lesson useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it. And if you still have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. That's what the comments are for. If you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I upload new videos regularly. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, all the links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye!